One of the smallest palaces in Britain, Kew Palace is situated in the Royal Botanical Gardens in Kew, London. The gardens initially served as royal pleasure grounds before becoming a centre for botanical study. The palace was originally built as a country retreat for a wealthy silk merchant, Samuel Fortrey, in 1631, standing over the foundations of an earlier Tudor lodge. Later, having caught the attention of Queen Caroline, consort of King George II, in 1729, the house began to be used as a royal palace, as an accommodation for her daughters. From the 18th century onwards, the palace became home to two future British monarchs, King George III and George IV. The palace, however, has been popular in the mainstream narrative as a retreat for King George III when he was suffering from bouts of mental health illness at the turn of the 19th century. While the original Tudor building does not exist anymore, the undercraft of the palace is a remnant of the 16th century structure. It covers only half of the plan of the palace, with rooms on the west and a long corridor leading to a well at the east. The undercroft has low, brick arches, which were originally plastered over to make them look like stone. The late 16th to early 17th century saw the arrival of persecuted Protestants from France, one of which was the original owner of the palace, Samuel Fortrey. While entering the palace, one can see the date 1631 carved into a cut brick cartouche over the door. Built in a style known as artisan mannerism, the building facade includes shaped and curved gables, brickwork in the Flemish bond, and an ochre colour wash. The palace was known as the Dutch House or the Red House due to the presence of the gables and the red exterior. While initially thought to be a Dutch building that was transported to England, the palace serves as an interesting example of the popular London regional style during the Jacobean period. Once the house was converted into a royal palace in 1729, the exterior was remodeled with sash windows along with a new central staircase. As a result, much of the 17th century interior was lost. However, archaeological investigations in the 1990s revealed traces of the 17th century decoration in the King's Library and the attics. In the library, 17th century paneling was discovered under 22 layers of paint. Similarly, a portion of a painted staircase was discovered in the attics, which serves as a vital clue to reconstruct the original staircase of the house. Investigations also revealed several protection marks that were carved onto the roof of the attic during the construction of the building. At present, the interpretation and the objects in the palace introduce the visitors to George III's life when he lived here during his bouts of mental health illness in 1801 and 1804. The antechamber consists of a bust of King George III, which was recasted from its original cast by Madame Tussaud. The dark linen fold paneling in the room dates to the early Tudor period. The paneling is one of the several recycled features of the palace that were taken from the nearby demolished houses. The room adjoining the antechamber is the library, which now serves as a museum room with objects relating to King George III's private life. George III was an avid reader and was responsible for the King's Library, a collection of 65,000 manuscripts that now form a part of the British Library. The pages' waiting room would have been used as a waiting room for the servants. In the 17th century, this room would have functioned as a kitchen. On the left, a door would have led to the now demolished service wing. This was where George III was kept secluded by his doctors in 1804 to 1805. The king's dining room originally served as a main hall during the 17th century. The Tudor rose on the ceiling dates to the 1730s when the house was being remodeled. The room is important as this was where George III was persuaded to leave his family and be confined in seclusion after being tricked by his doctor over a portrait of Van Dyck. The next room on the ground floor is the breakfast room, which houses objects associated with the royal children living in the palace. An interesting object on display is the dollhouse, which was built in 1780 for the daughters of King George III. The interior of the dollhouse has similarities to the interior of the Kew Palace, particularly with the green pattern wallpaper. The upper two floors consisted of the living quarters of Queen Charlotte, George III's wife, and his daughters Elizabeth, Augusta, and Amelia. The first floor of the palace consisted of the Queen's boudoir, where the Queen and the princesses would spend time doing activities such as needlework and knotting. An important aspect of this room is the carved ceiling from the 17th century, which depicts the five senses. The Queen's drawing room served as the principal room of the house. It was also the setting of the double wedding of two of George III's sons, Prince Edward, Duke of Kent, father of the future Queen Victoria, and Prince William, Duke of Clarence, later known as William IV. The room is also home to the harpsichord belonging to George III's father, Frederick, Prince of Wales. The object serves as a reminder of George III's passion for music. Princess Elizabeth's bedroom originally served as a library before being remodeled into her bedroom in 1804. A part of the bedroom wall has been stripped down to show the various historic layers of construction of the palace. Queen Charlotte's bedchamber next door contains the original horsehair chair that was designed as a wheelchair for the Queen in her old age. This was also the chair in which the Queen passed away in 1818. Kew Palace was abandoned in 1818 after the death of Queen Charlotte. The second floor has not been redecorated and provides a glimpse into how the palace would have looked after the royal family left. This floor is an important source to understand how the palace was built in the 1630s and subsequently changed over 200 years. There are surviving fragments of the original Georgian wallpapers in the rooms. Princess Amelia's bedroom consists of an original Gothic fireplace as well as a late Georgian flushing toilet. The floor is also a reminder of the princess's confined stay at Kew, largely reflected in the personalized room decorations. After Kew Palace was abandoned in 1818, no one occupied the palace again. In 1898, the site was opened to the public for the first time. At present, it is managed by Historic Royal Palaces and is free to visit.